Bob Keeshan, best known as Captain Kangaroo, was a beloved icon of children's TV. After appearing in several other children's shows, Keeshan fell in love with the job. He worked with his friend, Jack Miller, to develop a new idea for a children's show. They submitted their pitch to CBS and the network loved it. Before long, Keeshan was starring as the host of Captain Kangaroo. The show ran from October 5, 1955 to December 8, 1984. Children all over the nation adored Captain Kangaroo. Keeshan explained his idea behind the show was to explore the warm relationship between grandparents and children. His kind and gentle personality was apparent in every episode, and children were captivated by the show. Keeshan was able to perfectly balance his loving character with silliness and education. The show retained its hour-long format for many years until 1981, when it was shortened to a half an hour. This allowed CBS to expand the CBS Morning News lineup. The time slot of the show was moved to 7 a.m., and the program was also renamed Wake Up with the Captain. Of course, most people continued to refer to it as Captain Kangaroo. In 1982, 83, and 84, Keeshan won Emmy Awards for Outstanding Performer. He wasn't just recognized among children. Adults loved the educational and warm vibes the show created. Today, Bob Keeshan remains one of the most beloved children's TV show hosts, next to Mr. Rogers, of course. While both shows were airing, the two were actually friends, and they would often guest star on each other's shows. The days of live-action children's shows seem to have passed, however, and most children's shows today are cartoons. Still, Bob Keeshan's work on Captain Kangaroo changed the history of children's television. It's easy to look at such an iconic person through rose-colored glasses. Despite the warm feelings many people have associated with Bob Keeshan, he wasn't a perfect person. In fact, more recent evidence suggests some of his reputation has been staked on a lie. Unfortunately, it can be hard to come to grips with the fact that a childhood hero may not be all he seems. In today's video, we're going to unveil some of the secrets and surprises behind Bob Keeshan and his beloved show, Captain Kangaroo. Make sure you stick around because we're also going to reveal why some people are starting to view Bob Keeshan as a fraud. He had a history on children's television. Before Bob Keeshan made his debut as Captain Kangaroo, he wasn't entirely unknown on children's TV. He appeared on the show Howdy Doody as Clarabel the Clown from its inception in December of '47. Clarabel was a mute clown who could communicate through the honking of his horn and by squirting bottles of seltzer. Keeshan continued to play Clarabel until he eventually left the show in 1952. The reason the clown was mute was because any voice acting would have required producers to pay the actor more. Being a low-budget production, they didn't have the money to pay Keeshan anymore. Clarabel wasn't Keeshan's only clown character throughout his life, and in 1990, he was inducted into the Clown Hall of Fame. Captain Kangaroo was one of the first racially integrated children's shows. In 1958, an African-American actor named James Wall convinced producers to let him audition for a new part on the show. He successfully created the character Mr. Baxter, a teacher as well as Captain Kangaroo's neighbor. This was a momentous occasion for African Americans, who until that point didn't have a lot of positive representation. It was especially important for black children to be able to see people who look like them represented on screen. James Wall remained on the show for over 10 years. After he left in 1979, he still made a few guest appearances here and there. The cast loved to host the Macys Thanksgiving Day Parade. Today, the Macys Thanksgiving Day Parade is more like one huge advertisement for 100 different companies. It's usually hosted by celebrities and news anchors, but back in the day, the Macys Thanksgiving Day Parade was hosted by beloved television characters. In the 60s, the cast of Captain Kangaroo was given the high honor of hosting the parade for CBS. The last one hosted by Captain Kangaroo and his gang was in 1965, when Bob Keeshan was joined by a ventriloquist co-host named Shari Lewis. Captain Kangaroo and his friends were a favorite among children and adults alike, and Keeshan always did his best to bring wholesome comedic content to each parade. The captain wasn't immune to advertisements. Of course, running a TV show isn't always cheap, and the creators of Captain Kangaroo had to make ends meet. As a result, Bob Keeshan began to advertise for Schwinn Bikes in the 1960s. Children were sure to take advice from their favorite TV character, and they would rush to their parents begging for a shiny new bicycle. In the 70s, new laws were enacted which restricted the ability to advertise on children's television programs. In a bold and not-so-subtle move, they introduced a new character named Dr. Schwinn Dealer. While it technically skirted the law, they were still able to advertise the product to millions of kids. He wasn't really a war hero. Despite all the good that Bob Keeshan did for children's TV, he wasn't always what he seemed. Keeshan became the center of an urban legend when Lee Marvin announced on The Tonight Show he had fought side by side with him during the Battle of Iwo Jima. For decades, people believed Bob Keeshan was a war hero. More recently, however, historians have discovered this is not the case. While Keeshan did enlist in the military during World War II, it wasn't until 1945, when he had turned 18. The war was over before he even got a chance to fight. He didn't see any action, let alone fight in the Battle of Iwo Jima. Of course, this false reputation must be owed mostly to Lee Marvin, who's the person who concocted the tale in the first place. Despite the false reputation Bob may have earned, he still remains a beloved figure in children's TV, and he was heralded by fans for nearly 3 decades when Captain Kangaroo was still going strong. Make sure you stick around until the end of the video, where we'll reveal how his fans showed him a heartwarming amount of support during a dark time in his life. And if you're enjoying this video so far, please take a moment to like it and subscribe to our channel for more. He advocated for the welfare of children. Bob Keeshan was far more than just a children's television host. He had strong morals and wholeheartedly believed what he was doing was best for children. In 1993, he became involved in congressional hearings protesting violence in video games. This is an ongoing issue because many games glorify the horrors of war and violence, which can be desensitizing to children. He also advocated for educational children's shows. He was strongly against shows that revolved around selling toys, such as Transformers and He-Man. Bob always worked hard to bring an educational aspect to his shows, and he expected others to do the same. The theme song was stock audio. Many famous television shows hired composers to create an attention-grabbing and memorable theme song. In Captain Kangaroo, however, the creators took the easy way out. The show's original theme song was chosen from a British stock music production library. It was far cheaper to use, although the music also appeared on TV and radio in other circumstances. The show holds a record. Spanning nearly 30 years, Captain Kangaroo remains the longest-running children's show on commercial television. Sadly, CBS slowly moved its time slot to make way for trendier shows, until the show was eventually canceled in 1984. His photograph is buried on Mount Everest. 4 months after Bob Keeshan's death in 2004, his grandson, Britton, broke the record as the youngest person to climb the 7 summits. Throughout his journey, Britton carried a photo of his grandfather. When he finally reached the peak of Mount Everest, he buried the photograph at its summit, in memoriam to his beloved grandfather. It's inspiring to know Bob Keeshan didn't just preach family values on his show, he also practiced them. He could always count on his fans. At the end of the day, whether Bob Keeshan can be considered a fraud or not, his show still captivated and affected millions. Even though the show ended long ago, and Keeshan died in 2004, he's still adored by fans. In '81, he nearly died from a heart attack. As a result, he had to undergo triple bypass surgery. His fans were devastated by the news, and he received over 5,000 cards, notes, and gifts wishing him well. Bob Keeshan may not be all he seemed, but he still did wonders for children's television. Were you more surprised to learn Captain Kangaroo was one of the first racially integrated children's shows? Or that his grandson buried his photograph on Mount Everest? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to FactsVerse for more.